Gold Coin United off the back of a fight in the bottom, off the back of what looks like a 3-1 victory, will be advancing to the promotion tournament, the winners of the Challenger Finals.
The finals between us and Gold Coin are more of like a grudge match.
And eUnited complete the sweep 3-0 in 3 very dominant games.
I definitely think Dandy and GBM is an upgrade from their previous roster.
GBM's gonna pick up the first kill of the fight on the Pika move though. He went a little bit too far forward. Now Big God's kind of has to turn tail and run, but Chris is gonna fall down for a double kill.
They play around GBM really well because GBM is really good at setting up plays.
GBM is just 1v2 in here. Dandy flashes forward, will end up eating the Syndra ultimate, but it will barely stay alive because the damage reduction, GBM gonna utilize that protobot after a flash.
If we shut down GBM, I think it'll be really easy for us to actually take the game.
Welcome, League fans, to the 2017 North American Challenger Summer Finals. 6 weeks of online competition have led us to tonight's match, where the top 2 teams face off live from our studio in Los Angeles to earn the title of Summer Champions. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Daniel Digon Gonzalez, and I've got a double AD bot lane helping me break down tonight's games with David Freak Turley and special guest Freeze of Tempo Storm. Gentlemen, how are you guys doing tonight?
I'm okay, thank you.
I'm doing great. However, I am now a Ziggs one trick. It's not a double AD bot lane. Well,
you're a bot lane. It's bot lane.
Yeah, but it's an AP bot lane. I mean, you got to get it right.
All right, we're off to a great start today. Tonight's matches are a showdown between top challenger squads, eUnited and Gold Coin United. So to kick off our discussion, let's take one last look at the bracket. eUnited finished the regular season in first place, taking down 4-seed Big Gods Jackals in the semifinals. Then second and third seeds Gold Coin United and Tempo Storm faced off, with Gold Coin United ultimately claiming victory after an intense 5-game series. So Freeze, you were in that series. Sorry to say that you lost, but why don't you go ahead and break down kind of what happened there?
It was brilliant best of 5. It was one of my longest best of 5s. It was amazing. Honestly, it could have gone any way. There have been so many mistakes that both teams did. Anyone could have done anything differently, and it would have completely turned out the game differently. Yeah. But it was a brilliant show. I loved it, and you know, GCU were a better team, so they deserve to win.
What was it that made them better? Like what are some strengths you'd come into this match with?
So the GCU team is very late game centric team where they play champions that scale very well, and if you're not very comfortable on stage, or if you're like doing mistakes in early game, mid game, you get punished by it, because when you know, like when Oriana or Corki gets to late game, they will scale, they will carry the late game team fight. So they're very good at getting to the late game, and then once they get in the late game, they know how to close out the games, how to play, and how to punish the mistakes we do.
Yeah, and throughout the season, Gold Coin United has been known to play set plays, figure out how to set the trap, and then pull the trigger. And at the late game, with the late game death timers, I'm sure that's kind of what happened there at the end. Let's go ahead and switch our focus to the other semifinal series, eUnited's big sweep over Big Gods Jackals.
Yeah, honestly, this was a complete stomp, and they're the first seed versus the fourth seed. It's exactly what you kind of expect here. The new pickups, as you kind of heard in the tease, certainly some very, very good players here with GBM and Dandy running around, the Kazakhs leaping around, killing everyone. I think they were pretty quick to adapt to 7-14. St. Patrick paying on right now. So, you know, yes, lethality is quite a bit better now, and Kazakhs is great. And overall, I think this was a quick to adapt team. But now that we're another week down the line, teams got to watch LCK, they got to watch NALCS. I think both teams should be ready with proper champions for this one.
Yeah, GBM popping off in that one with a 32 KDA. So for more on the games, let's go ahead and send it over to the casters to get us in.
Thanks a lot, Digon, and welcome, Challenger fans. I am Optimist Tom Searfoss, and help me make history for tonight for the final Challenger broadcast ever is Mark Zimmerman.
I gotta say, when I came in today, I forgot that this was gonna be the final broadcast, so I'm not sure I'm ready for the pressure of the moment.
Well, I hope you're ready to sing the swan song of the Challenger series with
No
me.
one wants me singing.
All right, well, okay, well, we've learned from that mistake already, but I hope you're here to talk through the swan song as we're in store for an exciting night of games as the best Challenger teams of 2017 face off in a rematch of the spring finals. Gold Coin United, previous champions, defending their title against eUnited. Before we get into the game, we're going to break down the strengths of these teams lane by lane. So first, let's introduce the players and get you familiar. Starting on the blue side, for game number 1, it's eUnited. Top lane is Licorice, in the jungle it's Dandy, mid lane GBM, their bot lane duo of Deftly and Zeyzal with their coach Herman.
And loading in on the red side are the defending champs, Gold Coin United. In the top lane, Solo, jungle, Santorin. In the mid lane, we got Fly. In the bot lane, Rikara, supported by MadLife, coached by Loco Doco.
These two teams have been neck and neck all split long. Last year, it was Gold Coin United taking second place, much as they are coming into this final here. But two players that really stepped up and are facing off tonight in the top lane are Licorice and Solo.
And Licorice was able to shine a lot this split when he was no longer on Maokai duty. That might change, you know, given the fact that 714 just came around. But he had a really impressive showing considering, you know, in his first split, he was known as a great tank player, and then he showed great carry performances this split. Solo, on the other hand, is someone who's always been on the cusp of making it into the LCS, and he's done a good job on a lot of those carry champions as well. He's particularly proficient at Rumble and Gnar, and that's a pretty common matchup, so he can play both sides very well. The question is, though, with 714 coming into the meta, will this kind of change how the top lane plays out and really influence the story of this matchup?
And 714 might not be the only influence, because, of course, you can't talk about top lane without moving down the roster to the jungle, where there are two veteran players facing off in Dandy and Santorin.
And both these players are very integral to their victories in the semifinals and also the overall team play styles. So Dandy took that lethality Kha'Zix, went into the enemy jungle, invaded like crazy, super aggressive, hard carried the games. Santorin plays a much more patient, controlled style, wants to set up vision for his team to play around small advantages, and you heard them saying that they're a late game focused team, and he really plays to that style.
Yeah, and Santorin's strengths lie in a bit more vision control, and Dandy maybe a little bit more of a hard carry, but despite Dandy's success, Santorin thinks that their stylistic differences tip the scales in his favor.
I think Dandy has been actually really exciting to watch because he's a very aggressive player coming from LPL, I believe. So like when he was playing for LPL, obviously like all those jungles are really, really aggressive and all they care about is skirmishes. But I do think in this meta where tanks are actually like really strong, when I was watching the semifinals, he was still playing these aggressive junglers. He's not really playing Cinderhawk junglers, and I think that's where we have a huge edge on him.
You might be able to see him coming, but the question is, can you actually stop Dandy from going in and blowing you up? Because he had some really early things going on. Level 3, catching someone out with the help of Hawkshot on his wolves and stuff like that. Very intelligent, but also very aggressive. So it's not just pick a tanky jungler and ward for him. You also have to stop Dandy.
Yeah, it's going to be a very difficult force to be reckoned with coming out of the jungle. But in the mid lane, we have another set of veteran players. No, they have some experience. They've only joined the Challenger Series this summer split.
Right, two veterans of the LCK. GBM was a huge pickup for eUnited, and he's a big upgrade over Fox, who was able to play very well when he got snowballed with his jungler, and they were very mid-jungle focused, but that was kind of like the one play style that they would go for. He's much more diverse. Fly, a very similar story in that regard, where he's not nearly as much of a lane threat as Phoenix, a player who would intentionally take on 1v2 situations and often win them. You know, that's really not his style. He's working with the team, working with Santorin, getting on the map and trying to play for everybody, not just getting himself ahead.
You know, while both these mid laners may be a focal point of the map, since they're in the thick of things, we have, of course, on the bottom side, a pair of NACS KDA Kings facing off, the two standout scouting ground stars, Deftly and Rikara.
Right, and Deftly has been playing with his support Zeyzal for a really long time, and that synergy is clear all of last split. Generally speaking, both relatively on the safer side. Deftly plays a lot of those utility AD carries. We saw him doing super well on Varus, Ashe, those kinds of things. Can play the Caitlyn as well and kind of play more the range, but he's hardly ever the star focus of his team. Rikara, on the other hand, has been stepping up a lot and getting more playtime. Previously, last split, he was splitting it with Mashme, who ended up getting the nod in a lot of their games at the end of the season. This time it's all on Rikara, and the team put him in a position to carry last week. Game 5, super high pressure situation. He pulls out a 12-1 Kog'Maw performance. Huge game out of him, a lot of carry potential.
An absolutely massive game coming out from the bot lane and that. But of course, the marksmen are not the only ones down there. We have the supports, of course, where one of the lesser known players in the Challenger Series, Zeyzal, goes up against one of the, well, the most famous players ever in League of Legends, MadLife.
It's crazy every time you hear that, and it's obviously scary to play against MadLife, especially when his signature champions are meta. So we see a lot of Thresh, a lot of Blitzcrank. He loves picking those, and especially roaming around the map and influencing other people. Zeyzal, on the other hand, was a bit of an unsung hero, just given the fact that last split was all about the triple rookies all coming out together, and we saw a lot more attention paid to Licorice and Deftly, as well as having the EU mid laners and stuff. Now it's the Korean support in jungle. He often gets overlooked, but at the last week of the regular season, we saw a monster performance out of him on Morgana, and he's starting to turn heads a little bit more as a lot more playmaking supports are falling into the meta.
Yeah, and of course, these players matched up in the spring finals as well, and Zeyzal's more concerned about MadLife's map presence.
This final, I think we have to watch out for how MadLife roams around the map, because a lot of the time we play through mid lane, and MadLife can impact mid lane a lot better than any other support and challenger.
I mean, that's what we're talking about. Just super scary to play up against MadLife. Anytime he gets his hands on a playmaking support, he can go over there and make something happen. And like we were saying, a lot more of those around in the meta right now. There's also a lot of diversity in the bot lane with the gold coin getting buffed a fair amount. It's something that's super strong. You see Janna being played a little bit now. And so MadLife is a player that, while known for that kind of playmaking style, can play everything. He has a great Zyra as well and those kinds of champions.
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot of different styles, and we kind of go by lane. Every single lane pretty much has its own kind of carry story in this matchup, so we could potentially see any single one of these areas of the map blowing it open in this final series. Although we are in champion select for game number 1, it is eUnited starting on the blue side, while GCU taking the red side this time around, and the ban phase may be a little bit more specialized. We are still going to see the Zac ban coming out from Gold Coin United on the red side, but already some playmaking supports being banned away with, well, you don't want MadLife ever getting thrashed.
Yeah, a little telegraph strategy out of eUnited there, saying we're scared of MadLife a little bit. Let's take away that thresh right away. Corki, another champion that's banned out. We talk about Fly playing more for the mid and late game, going for that kind of strategy. Corki's great for that. Early game control, gets the package, can start making map plays with the team, and then scales extremely well into late game, going for that crit heavy build, even though he is mostly magic damage.
And we saw Tempo Storm towards the end of the series against Gold Coin United, banning out 4 or 5 different mid lane champions against Fly, but he still bust a couple of champions out of his wide champion pool bag of tricks. We are going to see the Maokai being banned away, so we said, hey, no, they're not stuck on Maokai duty. It's because it's so strong, it's banned away.
And I'm surprised to see GCU not ban the Cho'Gath. I mean, it's one of those patches we're talking about where on red side, it still feels like people are not 100% sure what you want to ban. Caitlyn's still an extremely strong champion and one that definitely can play, but we saw in the semifinals, Licorice picked Cho'Gath multiple times and absolutely destroy with it. It was not like a very snowball-focused pick as we see him lock it in. It mostly works to survive lane phase, slowly build up advantages, and then you get to this point where this unkillable meatball is running at you with a righteous glory, and eventually he finds his way into your backline and one-shots them.
Yeah, and during the post-game interview, I actually got a chance to talk to him a bit about that Cho'Gath pick, and he thought it was strong before the buff, so no surprise to see them first pick that one. Potentially could go into the jungle, although it's not necessarily Dandy style. Most likely will go into top lane for Licorice, but that does open up a couple of power picks for Gold Coin United on the red side. The Kalista has been slowly but surely climbing up the ADC tier list, and we are going to see it picked first here for the red side.
Not too much of a surprise, just the sheer amount of utility that comes with that champion right now. When it's able to find strong laning phases, it's extremely powerful. Right now with the Caitlyn ban, it's almost inarguably the top 80 carry pick. You do see a lot of Tristana in response, so maybe we'll see eUnited respond with that. And then we see a Trundle locked in very quickly here. That's a little bit surprising. We talk about the rise of the tank meta. Trundle is always someone whose popularity goes up when that happens, just due to his ultimate being able to steal resistances and health. Makes him extremely strong against tanks, but this is the first time I think I've seen it on 7.14.
Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of the Trundle myself, with the Sejuani passive being reworked to kind of give her, you know, the extra amounts of resistances. You can steal that away. With the Maokai being banned away, that's been Santorin's kind of go-to jungler here. The Trundle still could wind up going into the support role in the bot lane. This is Zeyzal coming out here, so he's done some interesting things. We'll have to wait and see.
That's the thing I wanted to point out, is that there's a lot of flexing still going on here, because Cho'Gath, while Licorice, we were talking about playing in the top lane, being super strong, I'm sure Danny can play in the jungle, and then you can even put the Trundle top, depending if they put on another tank up there. And if it's down the bot side, the Trundle still works fine down there, able to sustain up a fair amount. And we're going to see that GCU is going to go with the Taric with the Kalista. Not a combination you see quite as much, but it does work well. You can throw the Taric in. He has his ultimate to keep him safe with the invulnerability, and then it puts him closer in range to use his E. Usually you just throw that on a tank anyways, using your W to bind a frontline member to use him as, like, you know, kind of the second conduit for your spells. So it's a little surprising to see with the Kalista, but overall, it's an extremely strong teamfight champion just in general, so I'm no surprise to see them take the Taric, who also was buffed on 7.14.
Yeah, so we'll see if MadLife on Taric here. It might be the first look that we get at him on that champion. Of course, we had seen it being paired with the Sivir more recently. We saw some LCS play. I think Phoenix 1 was the one that was busting out that composition. Though that was a little bit more of a run at UComp, and this time with the Kalista, maybe a little bit more about the protection and, like you said, the initiation potential for GCU. Lulu and Bard, however, going to be banned out for the side of Gold Coin United, so they may not be entirely buying the fact that this could be a support Trundle, and maybe even just shoehorning it into that role specifically by banning away some of the rest of Zeyzal's champion pool. But it is going to be a lot more mid lane focused. It was 4 bans from Tempo Storm in the last series, 3 bans here from eUnited. The Talia and the Cassidon get banned away from Fly.
And it's worth noting, too, that way back in the day, the last time Cho'Gath was seeing much competitive play was actually played in the mid lane, able to become very hard to push out in mid lane, was able to get a lot of lane priority. Not great at roamer, obviously not a great late game team fighter, but very, very powerful in the early game, and then transitioned into just a tank later, similar to what Galio does these days. So we'll have to see. Always keep in mind Cho'Gath could always go mid, but not sure yet. Shen is something we've seen a decent amount into Cho'Gath recently, and I've talked to a lot of people about it because to me, when I watch this matchup, it feels like it's one that Cho'Gath should actually win.
Yep.
And then what always happens is level 1, the Cho'Gath fight to the death versus the Shen. They lose the trays because Shen's level 1 Q damage is nuts, and then they're playing on the back foot the whole time. So I'll have to see. Licorice was one of the first people I saw break out the Cho'Gath. I want to see if he has a little bit more mastery of it, or maybe this matchup really is just Shen favored.
Well, we'll have to wait and see for that one, as it does look like LeBlanc is being locked in for GBM. So we said that GBM may be a make or break factor here for the mid lane of eUnited. You're going to be putting on a champion that once he gets an advantage in that mid lane can just transition and spill that to all over the map.
Yep, and definitely a champion that benefits from a bit of a 4-1 strategy. Oftentimes you see it in the 1-3-1 back when carries were more common in the top lane, with the Cho'Gath ending up in the top lane most likely, and that Trundle flexing down to the bot lane and Gragas moving to the jungle. The most likely orientation of all these counter picks. You'll see LeBlanc splitting in the big beefy front line trying to protect that Tristana.
And the last lock in here for Gold Coin United is going to be Cassiopeia, one of the later game scaling mages in the mid lane. Of course, she will also be able to just wail away on this very beefy front line that eUnited has assembled. You have a Cho'Gath, their last lock in was a Gragas, and it does look like, at least for the time being, the Trundle will end up going into that bottom side of the map. So there's kind of 2 damage threats and a huge front line for eUnited, but a lot to kind of poke it down on the front side for GCU.
This is going to be a very fun game to watch. You'll see a lot of team fighting most likely. GCU's comp is almost 100% focused on 5v5 team fighting and really, really strong objective control. When you pair Cassiopeia with Kalista, not only do you have the amount of DPS to burn down neutral objectives, you can also have those Ren stacks built up to make sure it's almost 100% guaranteed secure. So they'll probably be forcing a lot around neutral objectives, whereas on the side of eUnited, with that LeBlanc being able to split push, hopefully they get it going in the early game, and then it becomes too much of a menace to match in the side lane, and then that's kind of forcing GCU into these difficult neutral objective decisions.
Well, we heard from Freeze on the analyst desk that Gold Coin United likes playing the later game team fight style. They have some scaling options available to themselves, with specifically Cassiopeia out of that mid lane matchup. We'll see if they wind up taking that objective control that they seemingly have a better composition for and pushing it into the late game, or if it's going to be the big beefy tanks from eUnited barreling down on them in the early game. eUnited throughout the challenger split has been a little bit of the faster team, where Gold Coin United are a little bit more slow and steady, but it was GCU that came out ahead of them 3-1 last split here in the finals.
You see once again GCU drafting to that slow and steady style, while Kalista can play aggressive in the early game, and Rikara statistically is the best AD carry in challenger.
My favorite way to prove it.
Yeah, you're right. Who needs to actually have an opinion when you can just look at some numbers? But he will be kind of the pressure point early on for GCU most likely. It is a matchup that probably should go in their favor. I have to admit, I haven't seen a ton of support Trundle recently, but it's generally speaking not very strong at harassing in lane, and Taric does have some ways of contributing with the stun at range. So we'll have to see. Both bot lanes have a little bit of a sustain. Trundle's passive healing him up.
So we hop into game number 1 of this 2017 North American Challenger Series Summer Final. Not back in spring. Both of these teams have made it once again. eUnited coming as the #1 seed. Gold Coin United hot on their heels at #2. eUnited are coming off a bit more of a momentum-spurring victory, though. Their semifinal against Big Gods Jackals was a 3-0 sweep in their favor, whereas Gold Coin United had a much tougher full 5-game series against Tempo Storm.
Right, so even though we have the run back a little bit of the spring finals, it is, like you said, very different, where eUnited was the best team in the regular season, whereas last split, that was GCU. This time around, eUnited has a very easy victory in their semifinals over Big Gods Jackals, who were pretty clearly the 4th place team, whereas Tempo Storm was hanging around GCU and eUnited the entire regular season. Those were the only teams that they lost to. They actually beat everyone else. So Tempo Storm was a pretty staunch opponent for GCU to beat, but they definitely are coming into this with a very different overall season compared to spring.
Both of these teams have made a lot of changes throughout the offseason, made a lot of changes on the Rift as well. We saw Gold Coin United, their later game team fighting scaling style, kind of coming online a little bit earlier than we saw during the spring split. Have been able to take a little bit quicker victories, whether that's a symptom of them gelling a little bit more as a team, with Fly opening up so many more options for their team compositions out of the mid lane, or if it's something with 7-14 being a little bit of a faster patch, we'll have to wait and see. But on eUnited side, they have kind of stuck with the same core of now their rookies turned into sophomores, as we have Licorice, Deftly, and Zeyzal on the map, but also a lot more contribution out of their mid-jungle synergy. Danny this time around is not on that kind of hard carry style jungler, so I'm very interested to see where his pathing actually takes him compared to Santorin, who is content to just sit back and farm away.
It'll also be interesting to see if that kind of influences GCU's prep a little bit, because you heard them talking about having 2 very different styles. While the Gragas can turn a lot of early ganks, you can obviously play aggressive with it. it is not necessarily what GCU might have been predicting if they're saying, okay, well, we expect some Kha'Zix priority and things like that.
You see both of these junglers starting on the bottom side of the map and finishing up on the top side. Santorin taking a little bit more damage from his red buff, but he will be smiting that one down, finishing just a couple steps behind his opponent in Dandy in the jungle, whereas on the top side of the map, the Shen and the Cho'Gath matchup not going entirely in favor of the Shen early on, but Dandy's going to be the first that makes a move in the mid lane. Flash body slam. Fly going to flash forward, though. He winds up picking up first blood. He gets a trade kill in this situation, almost takes down Dandy as well. But on the top side of the map, Santorin strikes at his own jungle gank, and they take down Licorice.
Nice early game advantage out of GCU here. They turn the 1v2 in the mid lane. We're saying that's something that was Phoenix's kind of play. Fly showing he can pull that one off as well. Gets the kill onto GBM, goes down for it in the end. And meanwhile, on the top side, this gank was happening. Licorice winning this 1v1 early on. We were talking about maybe Cho'Gath does actually win this matchup, showing like it should. But Santorin gets a nice gank up to the top side, punishes the all-in that Solo was frankly kind of baiting out of Licorice there, and they're able to grab that kill as well.
Yeah, while both junglers finished on the top side, I wasn't expecting so much action in the middle lane, although Dandy making his appearance over there first kind of speaks to the strengths that eUnited mentioned. We heard Zeyzal saying that they wanted to defend GBM in that matchup. They want to make him, you know, have an open lane pretty much so he can move around the map and influence those side lanes, but he's the one who gets down for first blood. Right,
and the Cassiopeia LeBlanc matchup is Cassio favored just in terms of his trading potential early on. You can bully that LeBlanc pretty hard, but what happens is the LeBlanc does have a fair amount of gank setup, and right now, Fly has no summoner, so you're probably going to see eUnited make repeated roams around the mid lane, and GCU are going to have to work very hard to keep vision control up around there to make sure Fly is safe until the summoners come back up. And you see already, right there, Zeyzal made a quick pass at it, probably saying, feels like he backed off a little bit. They might have some vision down there. And this is something GCU is very good at, so they might be able to weather this.
That's very true. When you think vision control in the Challenger Series, you think of Gold Coin United. Not specifically because they put the most wards down on the map, because they control vision and deny enemy vision. We see the trading power of that support Trundle coming into full effect here is definitely on the Tristana. A-okay to just rain down the pain with that explosive satchel, or sorry, explosive charge. Satchel is the Ziggs one. Getting confused with Freak on the desk now. But the Tristana trading power coming out slightly ahead.
And we'll see both supports probably heal up slowly. Like we said, Trundle has that passive, getting health anytime something around him dies. And then on the same time, Taric has his Q, which, like we were saying, was changed on 7.14 to build up charges a little bit differently. Overall, a buff in terms of how quickly he can get those back up after using a heal. So, as you see, both supports being the main targets in those trades, also the two easiest ones to sustain back up.
Yeah. Kind of the symptom of being a melee support in the bottom lane here, but also potentially why they went with the Taric into the Trundle matchup specifically, and then kind of shoehorned Zeyzal into picking that melee support. Although this isn't the first time in recent weeks that we've seen him play something a little bit more melee. He played 3 straight games of Alistar in their series against Big God's Jackal, was able to be a big, beefy frontline threat in those matches. This time around, he might be the one taking away the resistances from the opposing big, beefy frontline.
Right, I mean, Alistar saw some patches on buffs on 7.14 as well. Not super significant considering the big problem is that pre-6, his laning phase is relatively weak. And he almost got exploited in one of those games. I believe it was game 2, where they should have lost bot lane a little bit harder. Didn't quite happen, and they got out just fine, but it seems like maybe they cooled off the Alistar pick a little bit.
Yeah, we see Licorice very quickly blowing his flash as Santorin charge forward on the Sejuani. But Licorice being a little unafraid to push up in this lane because he did have Dandy on his own top side of the map, so Santorin wants to make this gank happen. The opposing jungler will be right there. We see both top laners hitting level 6, and now the Shen Stand United is on the map, but the Cho'Gath delete feast button is also available.
And you see what we're talking about with GCU's good vision control early on. They have a line of wards up in the top side here, as well as the top Scuttle Crab protecting Solo and that angle of attack onto Fly. And then the bot side, they also have a couple wards down there, as well as the Kalista Sentinels roaming around. So they've done a really good job setting up a nice defensive perimeter to make sure that they can kind of scale a little bit through this early game.
So Gold Coin United have pretty much everything that they need vision of right now lit up, although Dandy has kind of weaseled his way in through a little pocket of vision into his opponent's jungle. Red buff will be coming up in just a couple of seconds, so it looks like Dandy might be trying to make his way on that side of the map as GBM's going to make his own first roam.
GBM heading up on the top side. Dandy's already here. The wave is going to be coming in a moment. The dive is going to come over, and GBM hops the wall.
Yeah, they knew GBM was coming. I don't think they know Dandy's here. He's going to jump onto Solo, but just have the dodge shield coming out from Shen. The root will land from those chains, followed up with the Rupture Sun. Tons of CC as the silence lands as well. The Feast Over will end up landing on Santorin instead of Solo, so they're not able to finish the kill.
Not quite able to get enough CC in there. Dandy, not 6, did not have the knockback to put Solo in range of Licorice to get the Feast off onto him. He's able to just barely get out of there. Very dangerous overall. Minion wave still going to go in. eUnited backing off the pressure. Cassio pushed in the mid lane, so people are going to go reset back into their respective lanes. And a nice look by eUnited, but also GCU doing a good job backing off at just the right time.
Yeah, there was a control ward in the brush that we saw GBM walking through out of the mid lane river. However, they had no idea that Dandy was up there at the same exact time, so knowing that one was roaming in a really good response, MadLife even been on the recall, so he immediately shows onto the top side of the map to deter any sort of chase afterwards as well. And we saw Zeyzal roaming up to match that, but just soaking up some experience in the mid lane, which does let this double AD carry bot lane here. Or the Tristana and the Kalista in the bot lane, just kind of sit themselves and farm up a little bit. Not a lot of action going on the bottom side of the map, despite an Infernal Drake being the first one that we're going to see in this matchup. So even the Dragon RNG really wants to see these two teams tussle back and forth, but we'll have to see if there's any sort of priority placed down onto getting the Tristana ahead of the Kalista in a matchup that the Tristana is normally slightly favored in.
We'll have to see what they try and do now. The early first attempt was rebuffed. GBM not quite snowballing yet, and that's one of the scary things with this LeBlanc pick is when you're going to a kind of 5v5 team fight, team comp, if you do not get to the head and start getting some side lane pressure off those advantages, you will end up in a very difficult situation when, let's say, GCU sets up around this Infernal Dragon, a very important objective for both team comps to grab. And if the LeBlanc still a little bit stronger right now, potentially finding a target early on and blowing them up, but you got to worry that eventually it'll be tough as, ooh, Fly walks a little bit too close to a minion, has it spread to him, and takes a big chunk.
Still got a decent amount of damage despite only having a lost chapter, a Fiendish Codex, and a single stack on his Dark Seal from that trade kill that wound up going down for first blood in the mid lane. Although, of course, with GBM taking teleport on the LeBlanc, his late game pressure in teamfights, if he's not super far ahead, may not be to just blow up and one-shot one person, but he does still have a little bit of that split push pressure, which is something that eUnited has been able to utilize quite effectively. We've seen, even when GBM hasn't had the best performances on some of the matchups in the mid lane, like his Talia pickup, he still has that side lane pressure to put down in the later stages of the game, which is kind of the evolution of him as a player.
Well, and he's always just been a fantastic late game player. His Vladimir sometimes in lane has struggled, not really gone ahead, and then out of nowhere, he's blowing people up off great flanks and engages. So he always has that kind of potential to find a great opening even when not super far ahead. And you see them keep trying up here on the top side. Solo starting to get with the Tiamat not as tanky necessarily, needs it to kind of contest some of this wave pushing. But you see Licorice can kind of get this wave into the turret whenever he wants. And eventually eUnited are going to hope to find an angle on it. Didn't seem like they wanted to pull the trigger there. Maybe they were concerned about losing too much pressure around that Infernal Dragon.
Well, the more that Cho'Gath pushes in the top lane, too, the less of a threat of a Shen stand United out of view becomes. Because the Shen's going to be hidden under his own tower. He can kind of know where he's going to be and where he's not going to be, and you can match him with that teleport on the bottom side of the map if that's where you want to go, or pretty much wherever else. But we do see a lot more top lane focus coming out from actually both of these teams this time around. Is we thought mid lane was going to be an area of the map that really blew open in this one, but the top side of the map, we said both Licorice and Solo. Licorice in his sophomore split of the Challenger Series, Solo kind of been around the Challenger Series in and out, subbed on to Echo Fox for a little bit when there were some visa issues there, so he's been around the scene for 2, going on 3 years now at this point. And one of the things that we always talk about is when he's on his comfort champions, he looks really good, but he's not known as a Shen player, so this may be some of the top lane focus from both of these teams.
That's partially it. Also, I think it's just hard to get things going around the bot side. The setup by both people not super guaranteed, whereas on the top side, you got a whole lot of CC for a potential dive.
Well, Cho'Gath starts things off. The silence and the retrofile. The feast out there's not going to kill him, but the explosive cask will. Dandy answers the kill on the top side.
And there you see, they finally get the opening onto Solo there. The question is, can GCU punish at all? They're going to start this Infernal Dragon up. Teleport is available for Licorice, but he's kind of low, kind of sustaining off the wave. He might get healthy enough to want to contest this. It doesn't look like eUnited are going to, though.
No Cho'Gath ultimate available. Looks like they'll concede the Infernal Drake, but they might wind up getting the first tower gold on the top side of the map. That one's taking a lot of damage as Dandy's kind of stuck around up there, and they will wind up getting the first tower gold. Looks like they'll split it between those two on the top side.
There we go. Pretty common objective trade. We'll take another look at this dive, and it's just so easy in a sense to pull this off. You put the Rupture down, body slam right into it to make sure he can't get out. The flash late, you probably need to flash that Rupture just right away because that body slam is coming in, but it's so hard to play around all of that. I think the silence might have gone down as well, so you don't even have the option to flash necessarily. And there you see that kind of monstrous chain CC combo that comes out of a Cho'Gath, a champion that does require a little bit of setup to make it work really well. But if you do have that, it's an absolutely insane amount of crowd control that comes out, on top of the fact that you're going to be doing damage with his ultimate.
Yeah, he had him pinned up against a wall pretty much underneath his own tower, so it's gonna be a little bit easier to hit those skill shots, and then they basically have 2 directions or 3 directions to wind up walking. The bottom side of the map, though, Gold Queen United getting a little bit more aggressive onto Zeyzal's Trundle here. Rikara and Deftly level 6, whereas MadLife level 7, Zeyzal not quite available to hit that yet. May hit it after this wave goes down. But one of the things that we haven't necessarily touched upon in this one is the fact that the Infernal Drake was traded for the top side of the map, Gold Queen United being the kind of slower and steadier scaling team. You have the Cassiopeia, you have the Kalista, a lot of sustained damage in these team fights. The Infernal Drake's going to be a great option for them.
Yeah, the Infernal Dragon obviously helps with their kind of win conditions in almost every single way. They want to team fight a lot. Great, you have more damage coming in on everybody. You want to force around objectives, while Mountain Dragon is, you know, the better of the 2 dragons at doing that. Having higher stats as well is just beneficial for forcing. You start winning trades in situations. The concern is, though, if GBM gets far enough ahead, the Infernal Dragon doesn't help because Shen will not be able to utilize that well to control the teleport using LeBlanc. Now that said, like we were hinting at, LeBlanc from ahead, very scary. From even, not quite as bad.
No, finisher Merle Namicon, whereas on the opposite side, Fly on Cassiopeia has finished a Rod of Ages for himself and has his tier stacking up and ready to go for a little bit of time after that first blood went down in his favor. So while GCU's on a little bit of the scaling plan, United's on a bit of a timer. As you mentioned, GBM on this LeBlanc pickup kind of wanted to make things happen on different parts of the map. Well, it was Dandy this time around that on a tankier pick instead of being the hard carry out of the jungle, despite having 2 kills to his name himself, so I guess he's still kind of in that mentality.
Still going in.
He's been the one to really influence the other sides of the map, and now we'll see without Licorice has been freed up, are they going to start utilize some of that eUnited teleport usage that we've seen out of them during the regular split?
That's a big thing about why I feel like Santorin's been struggling to find an opening a little bit this game. After that one, the top side is just, you have to worry about the teleport coming in from the mid laner. So if you try and force around that bot side, they probably will have a numbers advantage unless Cassiopeia is already on the roam or is containing the LeBlanc, who for the most part has had pressure in this matchup ever since that initial gank attempt came in when she did not have any summoners available. So it's been a tough look for Santorin here. As we see, hold on, Fly makes a big play.
Yeah, just the petrifying gaze goes off immediately. He had the backup from MadLife, and Fly pretty much getting a solo kill on GBM.
GBM was making repeated dashes forward, and eventually Fly just kind of caught onto that pattern, read when it was coming, and called it out. Stuns him up, puts down that W, burns him low, and the poison is enough to finish him off. Doesn't even toss him any summoners to make that solo kill happen.
Yeah, maybe just a little bit too much confidence coming out from GBM here as Fly is able to not only do that, but he gets a blue buff transfer on himself. So the catalyst for the game for eUnited has actually just not been lit in this one. It's been Fly containing GBM and just keeping him in place, or in this case, turning him to stone.
And here you see, catches him trying to put the Shen out, gets the stun, has MadLife in vision as well, so they're willing to take that risk in case the jungler is there. They don't have to worry about the 2v2 turning out too terribly because they already have backup available. And overall, yeah, Fly just sees the W coming in, knows that E's going to be following it, sends his ult out and catches GBM.
Well, despite losing their mid laner, eUnited will be the ones to take your friend in ours, Mark, the Rift Herald, because they're going to be battling that one down. They could wind up using that to try to open up this map, utilizing the Rift Herald split pressure to take down towers rather than using GBM, who has fallen behind at this point in time. So good on them to take that objective while they are struggling a little bit to kind of get their game plan online.
If they can find an opportunity to potentially have Licorice shove in the top side and force down around mid lane, that would be the perfect usage of the Rift Herald, because it's going to be very hard to force down that outer turret with a strong Cassiopeia defending it. So you got to bring a little bit of backup, bring that Rift Herald down. Maybe you can bring your bot lane to roam up as well at some point, though they have been down pressured a little bit this game. Overall, though, they need to find a way to keep getting gold leads, because right now, with it even, GCU having a stronger scaling team fight with an Infernal Dragon already, off to a great start in this game.
There's going to be another one spawning for them. In about a minute on the bottom side of the map, as Santorin makes his way down here, who will blast gun over the wall, finds himself Dandy, farming away in his own jungle. Says, fancy seeing you here. That's to Arctic assault himself back over the wall. GBM wanted to make a motion down to join the rest of his team, but Fly's already there cutting him off, saying, no way.
A level down as the LeBlanc. It is a Cassio favorite matchup in a lot of people's minds. You see the immense trading potential that comes in. And then the scary thing is if LeBlanc is now in a position where she can't even follow roams for fear of getting all in, which is something Cassio is great at denying roams with being able to halt people when they try and face check rushes. It's going to be very hard for GBM to start finding openings here. They probably want to accelerate the pace of this game a little bit, start trading objectives out if possible, and then once the map opens up, hopefully GBM can find some space to work.
And the bottom side seems to be where Goldcoin United want to really kind of hammer their focus down at this point. Goldcoin United have yet to take a tower on the map, and the bottom side has been pretty much even so far throughout the majority of this game. Both of the supports have been making moves around the map, but we haven't really seen much of Rikara and Deftly in this matchup because they've just been sitting there going pretty much even in CS as there's still a wave for Deftly to catch up on.
It is a little funny to see both bot lane have kind of ignored for the most part. Second Infernal Dragon spawn, so GCU going to try and put that stronger neutral objective control to work right away, but eUnited's going to teleport in.
Yep, we got GBM coming in for a teleport. The Rift Herald's actually being used at the same time from Dandy, so looks like that was actually being used on the bottom side of the map to try to get them to a split division here. Fly's going to flash over the walls. Licorice came in with a Rupture, so the Goldcoin United get the Infernal Drake. They had to burn some flashes and get out of there as Rift Herald's moseying down on the bottom side and the rest of eUnited moving towards the mid lane.
Feels like United was just a little bit slow. GCU wanted to burn that Infernal Dragon down right away. They started off, and you see how quickly they can do it. United was not quite prepared for that. They wanted to contest it. You saw the teleports get channeled to come in, but they did not have a good angle onto GCU, and the flanking Licorice, while it was nice that he got the flash out of Flyer, I think GCU will take that trade any day of the week.
Well, meantime, Solo's going to find Dandy in his own jungle here. At the same time, GCU are going to be forcing away Zeyzal and Deftly in the mid lane. Dandy's still taking a lot of damage from Solo, going for that Titanic Hydra first, ripping through the lack of resistances coming out from Dandy.
Forces him out of the jungle aggressively. As in the meantime, GCU is just 1v2ing this mid lane. Deftly and Zeyzal are having a hard time containing Fly. This is kind of the fear that when you start setting up this 1-3-1, you're duo lane in the mid side can't actually bully out the enemy team's mid laner. So usually the concern is that your two-man bot lane in the mid lane is too strong for the enemy team's mid laner, so they have to go into the side lane where they don't really want to be, and they're open to more ganks. But it looks like Fly is doing a fine job contesting the 2v1 by himself, at least for now. We'll have to see if GCU chooses to keep this lane set up. They are resetting after grabbing that dragon, and kind of losing a little bit of pressure while doing so, but we'll have to see what they're actually able to do with their lane setup.
They might be losing pressure now that they've gone back, but they did a heck of a good job defending the pressure that eUnited was putting on the map. Even though there was no big team fight around that Infernal Drake, the Rift Herald went to the bottom side, and we saw the duo lane plus Dandy rotate into the mid lane. Fly, I believe, Fly and MadLife together stopped that push in the mid lane pretty much by themselves, whereas just left the bottom side of the map. It was Rift Herald and GBM, who GBM can't threaten a dive onto somebody sitting under that tower in wave clearing, so the Rift Herald just wound up going down. It took a lot of damage on that tower, however, didn't get anything for it, and despite the gold count being slightly in favor of eUnited right now, just by a couple hundred gold, Goldcoin United have all the advantages they need on those very, very key members, specifically their mid lane.
Yep, up 600 gold as the Cassiopeia. Got to feel pretty good as arguably the strongest scaling champion in the game. Maybe contested a little bit by Tristana in terms of damage. But overall, whereas normally as Cassiopeia is scared to be in a side lane with how far ahead she is over her counterpart in GBM, as well as the fact that Santorin is playing down around that side, feels very safe pushing up in there, trying to catch Dandy out in his own jungle, get the flash out of him.
Yeah, they blew the flash from Gragas already, and now it looks like they might be trying to take a bottom lane tower of their own. You mentioned that Santorin just hovering around this area, shadowing Fly. And it looks like that the mid lane containment strategy from Goldcoin United may be being pushed to full focus here. Now that they have the advantages on the Fly, they're just going to continue to push that into their favor. So not only can they shut down GBM and stop eUnited's game plan, but get some advantages of their own as they continue to pick on now GBM that he's so far behind. Licorice, though, getting into a trade with Soul. Looked like it was going good for the Shen. The Rupture ends up landing, though. The Feast is available, but the dodge zone's going to prevent some of that Vorpal Spikes damage from coming through, and Solo's able to walk away.
There you see Licorice understanding the limits of his champion pretty well. I'd say a lot of people are still inexperienced in Cho'Gath and don't know that they can take that 1v1 given the fact that he was starting a little bit lower health, but he's able to start trading out into Solo. The lower cooldown on the E coming up multiple times before the Shen Q comes up. He's able to kind of start winning that trade and putting Solo in a position where if he's not close enough to his turret there, he almost got feasted and taken out.
Yeah, so Solo is doing an okay job at keeping himself alive. Is he going to be able to build up some resistances now as we see Zeyzal trying to move and get some vision in his own jungle, but GCU's core combo of Santorin and MadLife are denying him from doing so and taking his wards with him.
GCU kind of sacking the top side, saying, Solo, you're on an island, you're doing just fine. You died once in the early game after a lot of focus. That's not too bad. And now we're going to use our mid and jungle and bottom control to just take over this side of the map and start setting up control so that eUnited really doesn't have an opportunity to roam down to that LeBlanc and get her going in the side lane. A really nice plan out of GCU that they're implementing very well.
It's also working out extremely well because Dandy got all those kills when they put the pressure on Solo on the top side of the map. So Dandy's been able to get the kill onto Fly in the mid lane. Dandy got the kill on Solo on the top side. So even though you have the Cho'Gath slightly ahead in map pressure on the top lane, he's still not going to be able to necessarily bully out Solo from his lane as long as we see him playing the matchup the way that he has.
We also see Licorice grabbing an Abyssal Mask, a little bit of a surprising item on Cho'Gath. Haven't seen it too much, but I actually think it's a great purchase for 2 reasons. One, you're the furthest ahead on your team, and you want to be able to snowball a little bit more without, committing to like an AP Cho'Gath or anything like that. Similarly, eUnited has a ton of magic damage that will benefit from him increasing the damage that people take. So both GBM and Dandy will benefit from that. Even Zeyzal a little bit, his ultimate coming in as magic damage.
You got the Righteous Glory too, so Cho'Gath being in range to apply that magic resistance debuff is going to be pretty easy to do. Now we see Licorice on the bottom side going to be matching up against Fly, and we saw Rikara getting Buster shot the heck out of there as Deftly was going for a winning trade in his favor. And Cho'Gath has come down against his Cassiopeia, so with that Abyssal Mask, has a little bit of magic resistance in addition to his Merc Treads, but still, GCU's Fly on Cassiopeia very far ahead, has a fully stacked up Saracen Brace already, fully stacked up Rod of Ages. Cassiopeia pretty much fully online at this point.
Wonder if we're going to see a little bit of a dance setup now out of GCU. I wonder what they're going to do, because I like what eUnited is thinking. Dragon's coming up in 20 seconds. You put GBM up on the top side. If Cassiopeia tries to match, she does not teleport. You might be able to get that Dragon away. If they keep Shen up there, that might be a bad matchup for the Shen, though. Like we said, eUnited with GBM not super far ahead, probably can't bully out that tank quite as hard as they want to. And Licorice is able to finish off that turret down in the bot lane by himself, continuing to get further and further ahead. And now they have a little bit of control down there with Cho'Gath on the bot side. They're starting to set up some vision control for this Dragon.
So while their early game plan hasn't necessarily worked out for them, eUnited with the threat of the double TP are now making rotational advantages on the map. Like you mentioned, GBM's threat of a teleport coming in from the top side. You have to send Shen to match that, which means that Cassiopeia has to go on the bottom side against the Cho'Gath, and Cassio needed to go back, completing pieces for her own Morellonomicon before this Dragon was going to come up, because GCU, they want to continue stacking up that late game Dragon win condition. And looks like they might be going for a fight, though. Santorin, Arctic Assault's in, Dandy body slams out. It's a little bit of a dance of the junglers here. We already have Licorice down on this bottom side. GBM is still split pushing to his heart's content on the top. You've rotated Shen down to the bottom here, so GBM will be able to teleport into this, and the Shen is actually pretty close. GoldCoin they get the inside track to the Dragon, but eUnited are going to the inside track to the mid lane tap.
Once again, eUnited does not feel confident enough to really teleport in and brute force a fight. It makes sense given the deficit that they're at in terms of Dragons. They try to go mid, but GCU collapses in time.
The Shen Saniite is there, also going to have the Glacial Prison go out. It lands on the Deftly, but he's able to jump away. GBM, though, is going to teleport into the mid lane. Rupture will wind up landing on the Shen. There's a Trundle pillar to stop him out. MadLife taking about half of his HP and damage. Rikara is just going to Fate's Call the Taric back in. So despite a bunch of things happening, there's Mountain Dragon that goes to GoldCoin United, but nobody dies.
Nobody dies. They get chunked out a little bit low by the Tristana, but the Taric heal comes in. Basically full health bars for both teams, and GCU comes out ahead once again, grabbing those Dragons.
Fly's rotated up to the top side to clear out that wave that GBM's been pushing in. It looks like eUnited now going to be getting a little bit gutsy in the enemy jungle. We found GBM catching out Solo a little bit. There will be a red buff, looks like Steel going over in favor of Dandy. He's the one that smites that one away, so they get a red buff steal for themselves, but they haven't gotten anything, and they lost a Mountain Drake, and more importantly, it's 3 Drakes stacked up with another Mountain spawning in about 5 minutes.
Pretty poor consolation prize overall on the side of eUnited. They also, like you said, lost that teleport on GBM, so he's not going to have that kind of advantage over that Cassiopeia for a little bit. They're trying to set up that siege with the long-range Tristana, not able to find anything as Fly pushes in the top side. The scary thing for eUnited is the fact that they only have a 1,000 gold advantage right now, while GCU has no turrets down. So this is a lot of gold available on the map for GCU to kind of recuperate if they ever find an opening or rotational advantage.
A lot of that's going to be coming in through CS advantages, the mid lane and the top lane. The double solo lanes coming in for GCU with advantages built up for themselves. Whereas Deftly in Rikara, like we said before, we have to revisit this every 5 or so minutes because they've been relatively quiet on the map so far, content to farm themselves up to ridiculous amounts of CS. For 26.5 minutes in, we have almost 290 on Tristana and 280 on Kalista. They've been untouched all game.
It's one of the fun things about being an AD carry and competitive. Sometimes you get stuck in the mid lane and they say, hey buddy, we just need you to sit in this mid lane and farm for a while. And that's music to the ears of an AD carry player.
Never realized that a marksman could be an investment banker on Summoner too.
Definitely is the richest one right now. Just broke 300, 26.5 minutes into the game about.
Yeah, and the fact that, well, Fly has 2 kills on him, so he may have the most gold in the game if we're going to carry. But now MadLife getting caught out, trying to ward his own jungle. Did see eUnited up here earlier before stealing away the red buff, so while it wasn't the best consolation prize, they did get some vision control and a bit of vision denial on the top side, so they're able to chunk down some damage on the MadLife, but he's A-okay with Rikara around to keep him safe and call him in just in case he gets caught out too far.
That said, the matchup is starting to flip in favor of the Tristana for a while. It is completely in Kalista's favor early on, having the trading advantages. Tristana does fine in the matchup, but does lose priority a little bit. And then once you start getting to your second, third item, the range starts becoming a huge issue. Deftly starts taking over this matchup as the Tristana pick, and you see them pushing in a lot around mid lane. As Licorice could be in some trouble down here in the bot side.
Ooh, gets the Rupture down on himself, but Solo's not going to bait into that one. Meanwhile, Danny's going to get caught out here by MadLife, trying to go over the wall here. Will body slam after using the explosive cast to keep himself alive. Now Licorice gets the Righteous Glory proc. Rupture's going to land as well. The Feast is still available. The Vorpal Spikes go up as well. Licorice with the Feast. He gets a solo kill on Solo.
Licorice once again demonstrating he knows the limits of his champion in that matchup, even though he's down health. He has a big burst tool available. Shen has no way of putting in that final damage that he needs to actually finish off the Cho'Gath. So Licorice kind of baits him for a little while and then just keeps dropping him lower and lower, and then he feasts him for a huge amount. The E finishes him off and he gets an advantage. Now eUnited trying to force even more around mid lane.
Yeah, we see Deftly still wailing away on the tower though. His team's getting caught in combat. He gets Glacial Prison on the backside, so there's no Tristana damage, followed up by the Petrifying Gaze. He gets taken down and the rest of eUnited fall as well.
Big overextension by eUnited. They get a solo kill down the bot side. They feel like they have the numbers advantage, so they try to force around mid lane, but it's still a 4v4 around there. They get caught out of position. Licorice is too low to really teleport in. Doesn't even try to. GCU find a really nice team fight, and like we said, they can do objectives pretty quickly. They grab Baron off the back of that fight.
Double Infernal, single Mountain, and now a Baron buff, because Baron Nashor just melted under the damage that Goldcoin United put out. eUnited making a very uncharacteristic mistake with their aggression, getting a little bit too aggressive in the mid lane here. Now Licorice, he has his Feast back available, so we'll see if Solo's able to take it to him. He will have Baron buff minions to help him out in this one. We see Licorice actually might be caught up here, but he is going to wind up walking away. The Shen taunt should be available just in a couple seconds, but well, Solo's still giving chase. Look, he's just his own way.
Relatively hard to lock down the Cho'Gath. He can always put the Rupture down. You have to run through that or pass around it. In the meantime, he kind of just runs away as fast as he can. Not very fast as a Cho'Gath, but still getting some distance. And we'll take another look at that mid lane fight. Like we said, GBM is around. They're trying to force down. Licorice just won that in the bot side, but it's still a 4v4 around mid, where arguably you're probably weaker in your 4-man core. Dandy does not have his ultimate available, just had to use that to disengage. They open up onto him, and then a great Sejuani ultimate to realize that they already have the kill secured onto the Gragas, so they retarget down onto Deftly on the Tristana, get a nice chain CC onto him, and once both of them are down, that's the smite down, and that's the main damage threat down on eUnited. Very easy for GCU to make the call to force onto the Baron.
We also saw eUnited being a little bit split as to if they were going to be turning onto the fight or finishing that tower, as Deftly was wailing away 3 or 4 shots onto the tower in the mid lane, and then only got about 2 in the fight before he got CC chained to death. So now there's going to be a Baron buffed up Goldcoin United for eUnited to try to contest with. And you mentioned that 1,000 gold or so margin that eUnited had in the early game, not going to be enough to tie them over. Goldcoin United now has ballooned this to almost a 4,000 gold lead for themselves.
They grabbed the Baron, they grabbed a couple kills, and they've grabbed 3 turrets. So like you said, big gold swing in GCU's favor here. The question is, how much more can they get off of it? Like we said, probably the stronger late game team fight. They're going to be grabbing their second Mountain Dragon as well. eUnited, game 1 starting to slip away from them here.
And although they weren't able to execute their early game plan, we thought that they might be able to utilize the double teleport play to their advantage. Tried to utilize it, didn't work out well for them. They got some advantages due to Licorice's Cho'Gath pickup on the side lane, going toe-to-toe against Solo, getting a solo kill. Then they got a little bit too antsy because, you know, the rest of their core, as you mentioned, not as far ahead as Goldcoin United's. When you have a 2-kill at the time, now 3-kill Cassiopeia in that core, and the rest of your team has 2 kills combined, that's only your jungler, you can't really go toe-to-toe with that.
Especially when you factor in the double mountain, or excuse me, double Infernal Dragon as well. So eUnited make a big misstep right as they were starting to grab control of this game. It's going to be very hard for them to get another opening like that, given the fact that GCU is just mowing these turrets down. They grab the mid lane inner turret. Solo has this one down to about 5%, 1% HP. It's going to drop anytime someone looks at it.
Officially a sliver.
A sliver.
Yes.
a sliver of a percentage.
One sliver of HP left on that bottom lane tower. Solo will potentially get that one, but he's distracting both Danny and Licorice over here, so Goldcorn able to get that mid lane tier 2. They still only have a couple seconds left on Baron buff, so with a huge influx of gold in their favor, they're going to use that to recall very quickly and buy up into some very key itemization. Shen had started with a Titanic Hydra, no real tanky items to himself, now has an adaptive helm, and the Randuin's Omen picked up. There's a Knight's Vow and a Locket on Santorin, so the supportive jungler is fully online for the Sejuani. More importantly, you got a Void Staff and a Mercurial Scimitar picked up for the 2 carries for GCU, so they are very, very big threats as well.
They are huge threats, and if eUnited is going to find a way back into this game, it will actually probably be from a pickoff onto one of these 2 primary damage dealers into winning a team fight. Because, like always happens in these kind of tank metas, if you're able to pick off, say, that Cassiopeia that is very fed and strong at the start of a team fight, you can win that team fight even though you're behind in gold. And it's a situation where they do have a lot of tools to do it. You have LeBlanc who can come in from funny angles. You have Dandy who can insect her back with the Gragas ultimate. And Licorice, if he ever finds a way to kind of charge through GCU's front line, which is very hard to do, but if he ever finds a way onto that Cassiopeia, he has an immense amount of true damage to contribute as well. So eUnited do have the tools to find a team fight, but it's going to be very hard to find that correct team fight.
You mentioned the amount of gold that Goldcorn United still had kind of left on the map when they had 0 towers taken. It was about a 5,300 gold Baron power play that just happened for them. So they took those 4 towers, they won a team fight for themselves, and they got all the map pressure to get the CS advantages even further in their favor. So now if you are eUnited, you waited for the Baron buff to fall off, and you're able to respond by taking the tier 2 bottom lane tower. That mid lane tower, though, is still a bit of a thorn in your side, as that has taken a lot of damage, but still hasn't fallen down, but you really aren't in a position to start sieging up towers now that Goldcorn United basically only have 1 lane to shove down on this top side, because that bottom lane tower has officially a sliver of HP left.
Officially, and on the side of GCU, it might be a little bit difficult to continue to force around turrets right now. No neutral objectives available to take down. GBM kind of exposed in the mid lane.
Yeah, he's going to have to flash over the wall, though, getting away from solos. The rest of Goldcorn United are collapsing down on him. So now United are a little bit scattered and a little bit torn apart. Goldcorn United, though, are just going to use this advantage that they got to ward up this top side, the blue side of their opponent's jungle, because Baron's going to be spawning in about 1 minute and 45 seconds. You're going to want to play around this top tower anyway. You have complete vision control. This is GCU's style. This is where they thrive.
This is exactly where they thrive. These slow, grind you out kind of games. They have the advantage. You see them very willing to spend the next 1.5 minutes sitting in this topside jungle and denying eUnited from even being able to farm some of these lanes. And then eventually, the scary thing for eUnited is that Baron will come back up, and you will have to face check that. And then you are not heading in from funny angles. You're not looking for flank. You are running through their vision. They're going to see you coming a mile away, and it's going to be very difficult to win a team fight. GCU's comp is not great overall at sieging, so they're playing this right. You don't want to force any more around that top turret, even around that bot turret, despite how low it is. Don't get greedy for it. Just wait for that next neutral objective and play it out from there.
The United are going to be able to sneak away with that mid lane tower, so they pick the Thorn out of their side, and they even up the tower count, although the gold still about 3,500 in favor of Goldcorn United. Even though these teams are looking a little bit different, this final series is playing out very eerily similar to the way that the spring finals did. Is actually GBM going down. Kill between him, Fly and Rikara on him kind of illustrates the point here. The mid lane matchup for Goldcorn United is running away with this one.
You heard them kind of talking about it, both teams being relatively mid lane centric overall. This time Fly getting the much better of the matchup, got the counter pick into the LeBlanc, and then was able to trade favorably early on, generate himself some leads, and now GCU is keying off those.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is you take out one of the 2 damage threats on the side of eUnited, so now you're just A-okay to force away in the mid lane here. You wind up catching down under Rikara, but the QSS flash away from that. The Shen stand United coming in as well. Now Deftly's the one that has to bounce the heck out of there. The mid lane inhibitor almost goes down, but Goldcorn United very wisely back away.
There we see some of the potential on eUnited to find a pick-off. It would have been great if you had some LeBlanc damage to throw in there as well. But they did still get the flash out of Rikara. They got the ultimate out of Solo, and now just have to be careful of face check.
Oh, they wanted to go for that brush. Good rupture. Knocks up a lot of them. There's the Taric ultimate coming down, as well as the fact that Danny has to flash out of there, but he's going to get locked up and taken down right after. MadLife wants to get the credit for that one. You have Licorice in the front line taking a lot of damage. The people on the backside from GCU taking damage as well. MadLife is going to want to going down. Deftly gets the reset. GBM's respawn to join the fight. Finally, the Cho'Gath goes down, and Santorin's trying to lock down on the Deftly. They've taken down GBM on the front side of the fight, but now it's a 2v3 situation as the bottom lane for eUnited are trying to go toe-to-toe against the rest of GCU.
And there's one of those angles. GBM is able to teleport, I believe, into the backside, or he just wrapped around on his own. Either way, he's able to get onto Fly, who had just been chomped down on by Licorice. He was at half health. They're able to blow him up, and they're able to kind of win that fight a little bit. From how far behind they are, trading 2 for 3 is not that bad overall, but they still need to be careful around Baron.
Yeah, the Baron bait coming out here. Still 2v3 situation. Zeyzal's pretty tanky, though. He has to flash away from the taunt coming out from Shen from solo. Is definitely on the backside, able to utilize that Tristana range to keep himself A-OK and far away.
One of the big things that happened in that team fight was as Deftly was starting to kind of reset through the fight, Rikara was actually on the edge of a Shen block zone, so there was some damage missed out on. Here you see the ultimate out of Santorin does not find a priority target. Licorice's Gargoyle Stoneplay was not able to be used to combo in onto Fly here, so he chomps through the shield. You see drop down to half health, healed up a little bit, but GBM comes flying in from the backside, able to add in the final damage in CC to get that kill off. Licorice is trying his best to frontline while GBM goes. But there you see 2 or 3 auto attacks blocked out by the Shen on Rikara. That was actually huge from stopping Deftly from potentially being able to win that fight, because if they drop Rikara, they definitely win that 2v2 from then on, because there's no way for GCU to really get onto the long-range Tristana from there. GCU barely able to win that team fight. eUnited not relenting. They want to force down onto this Elder Dragon. Not very beneficial from them, given the fact that they are lacking any dragons of their own. And GCU are more than happy to trade this out for a Baron.
And the Baron will be a big threat to wind up ending the game, but eUnited just simply can't let GCU with 2 Infernals and 2 Mountains get the Elder Dragon on top of that one. So while there will only be a 1 stack of Dragon Baron, which will be only 45 extra damage over 2 seconds for eUnited, they denied the objective from GCU, but they're, like you said, super happy to get a Baron as a consolation prize.
Right, it's nice for eUnited to stop GCU from potentially getting the Elder Dragon as well, but you got to think that that trade still favors GCU heavily. They can use this Baron right now to charge down mid lane, get to that exposed inhibitor in the mid lane, and they start playing off the auto self-generating mid lane pressure. They can split up, send Shen down the bot lane following that, and the 4-man up to the top side once they grab this mid lane inhibitor. eUnited can potentially try and defend, see if GCU overextends trying to walk in for hits on it. They do have a relatively short range comp, like we were saying, and it's a small choke point that they have to walk through. Dandy and GBM might be able to combine again to find an angle onto Fly or Rikara.
That mid lane inhibitor is exposed, but it looks like GCU are not content to try to fight over this one, while the Elder Dragon, despite not being super powerful for eUnited, is still active. Now Dandy trying to get a catch on the Santorin, they knock him back in. The Shen Unit has been burned just to save the jungler, so they do wind up getting a very key cooldown off that, as well as the Gargoyle Stoneplate being used by Santorin.
A good look overall by eUnited, able to chunk out the enemy jungler as well as get some key cooldowns off GCU side. They do lose Dandy's ultimate to do so. GCU does not really need to back away. They can keep Shen grouped up a little bit, but they are taking it a little slow here, not actually able to do anything with the Baron buff quite yet. I understand being scared of an Elder Dragon buffed up enemy, but it's not that much true damage burn that they're going to be getting.
And the fact of the matter is that Elder Dragon burn's only going to last for a little less than a minute, so they will still have the Baron buff for a bit of an extra duration from that, but they're going to force down on the last remaining outer tower on the map, as that sliver of HP bottom tower fell a little bit earlier. So now Gold Queen United, at this point in time, you're 40 minutes into the game. The gold leads aren't extremely telling, but the fact that this is a 7,000 gold advantage now in favor of Gold Coin United, that's translating into huge leads. You can see right here on the bottom of your screen, about 3,000 advantage in the mid lane, which is basically a completed item for Fly over his opponent of GBM.
As well as the fact that, generally speaking, Cassiopeia will outperform in late game team fights. That said, Deftly is pretty much on pace with everyone else in the game, so he's done a good job farming up. You see it sitting at 468 CS, and he's going to be able to be kind of the main focus for eUnited. He's able to jump forward in team fights and kind of get in on some of those pick-off attempts and just throw that little last bit of damage you might need to find the kill. It's going to put a lot of stress on Deftly and the rest of eUnited, honestly, to find these kind of crazy angles, but that's what you got to do on the back foot.
He's going to have to as the inhibitor falls here. He's the one in about 1.5 damage threats here. The Cosmic Radiance comes out from MadLife, keeping the entire team safe. Licorice is on the backside, tanking as much damage as possible as Danny's going to body slam in. The Butcher falls off as well. Fly pops the Stairs Embrace, but will go down. Now Deftly's jumped onto Rikara, but the rest of GCU turn onto him. They've already dropped GBM and Licorice, but Deftly stays alive. He flashes back over the wall. He's kiting back onto Santorin. Zeyzal and Dandy are in the front line trying to keep their Tristana alive, and the carry is coming through big in this one. Leapt into the fray, gets locked up by Solo, but he's not going to go down. Hops away yet again off of another reset, and these tanks will not die. GCU lose 2, eUnited lose 2, and that's it.
Oh my god, Deftly spent so long hitting on that front line, and it's just so hard to melt through them. They have shields from Shen, they have healing from MadLife. They get a great fight in terms of finding Fly early on. Once again, kind of pushed off to the right side of that team fight. Multiple people jump onto him and get that kill. Rikara as well getting focused down by Deftly, who has to spend the whole rest of the fight trying his best to kite out, hitting the closest target, but it feels like this might just be a situation where the enemy team is so tanky, you're not actually able to snowball these fights completely 5-0. Definitely already at full build for the most part and could not chew through the 3 frontline members of GCU on the tail end of that fight.
Yeah, as we saw, this one started off pretty good for Gold Coin United because they wound up taking that mid lane inhibitor. Licorice is being locked up on the backside by Santorin. Dandy actually starts off this engage with a decent explosive cast, gets the Cosmic Radiance out early, but then still, it's very difficult to take people down despite them not being invulnerable.
And Fly ends up in just a very strange position here. He did not kite back with Rikara and keep the backline members together. That's pretty much what you want to do. He ends up going more towards the right side, which is exactly where the members at eUnited wanted them to go. They can hit them over the wall, they can jump through that gate, and they're able to find him. And then after that, definitely continues on to Rikara. Playing these fights very aggressively. I like taking the risks. It was difficult to find that kill on Rikara, but if you're not willing to put yourself in a position to die, you're not going to get kills. So I like that Deftly was trying that. It just ends up in a situation where once they get that kill, they can't do much. Here, GVM tries to find Solo. He's going to be able to use his ultimate to get out of there. Almost caught out of position.
Yeah, still winds up utilizing the Stand United though, so that's going to be on cooldown and not available to kind of keep Fly or Rikara alive in this next fight. We saw Gold Coin United. They traded the Baron buff for the Elder Dragon. They were able to take 1 tower, but basically that was all the gold they got. About half of that 1 tower they took down, plus the 1525 from the Baron buff going down. This was about 1.9k Baron power play for Gold Coin United. So eUnited are doing good at hanging tight with Gold Coin United in the part of the game that they really shine in. It's really kind of become the Deftly versus Fly show at this point. The late game Tristana is fully online. Fly is at late game Cassiopeia and basically has been for the past 13 minutes or so because he got so many advantages in the early game. But the big question mark is going to be, can GBM get those flanks? How tanky is Licorice? And what does Rikara add to this comp? As he is himself is 3-1-6 now on this Kalista.
I think the big thing is just those double Infernal Dragons. You saw if you had a little bit of bonus damage to try and punch through some of those tanks, for how long Deftly was hitting them would have been super beneficial, but it's on the side of Fly, so even if he goes down, luckily, the side of eUnited does not have any of those extra bonus stats coming in. And like you said, Rikara, how does he fit into this team comp? Well, he just needs to kind of survive and keep peppering in that damage. Even though he does not have a super crit-focused late game scaling build, he will still do a fair amount to most members on eUnited. Sure, Licorice, Dandy, and Zeyzal have a fair amount of armor, but he does have the armor pen. He can just keep those stacks up. And then if they're actually in a position where they're just focusing down frontline, the frontline will never be able to do enough damage to Rikara, most likely to cut through all that life stealing that he's going to have with 3 items overall that can give him more health back.
We also have a lot of loyalties being pledged in this game. There's a Knight's Vow on both junglers and a top laner and a support. So the support for eUnited Zeyzal is bound to his ADC and Deftly. We see Dandy, I believe, being bound to GBM. So both the damage deal is covered for their side, as well as now on the side of GCU, Santorin, I believe, is bound to Rikara, whereas Shen for solo is bound to Fly. So they're going to want to try to start this one off with a face call, but Dandy and Licorice in the front line. Cosmic Radiance is going to be keeping pretty much everybody invulnerable in this one, and they're trying to chew through Licorice extremely early on. Licorice has to exit to the backside of the fight, but they haven't touched Deftly. GBM trying to cause chaos on the backside, but Zeyzal's going to wind up falling first. Dandy will follow after that one, and now there's no Knights for the front line of eUnited to pledge loyalty to their kings of damage in the back line. Gold Coin United with 5 members strong are to be pushing down this mid lane. They turn around to try to catch GBM. He tries to flash away, but he gets locked up by the Taric Dazzle. He's going to get stunned up by Santorin, and he's going to barely fall down there as Solo finally gets the kill.
Another nice attempt by eUnited. You saw Licorice get his feast off again onto Fly, but he did a great job kiting to the right side. And even though he ends up right next to Deftly, he's avoiding GBM, who is collapsing from the top side of that river. So he kites away from the burst damage of GBM. I believe he has the Taric ultimate as well, so Deftly can down. And there he goes!
They cut off the hop from Deftly, and even though Licorice is alive to tank as much as he can, there's no damage left. Gold Coin United, 46 minutes into this match. matchup are going to take game 1 of the Challenger Finals.
It was difficult. eUnited put up a great fight in those late game team fights, but they finally have one where Fly does not drop early on. He's able to contribute massive team fight damage, burning down the tanks. And there you see, that's the most important thing on the side of GCU. Kill the enemy front line. No one can protect Deftly. They have to back out of that fight.
You just saw eUnited's game plan for the early game didn't necessarily go according to, well, what they had written down. GBM was contained in the mid lane by Fly and even fell behind in that matchup as LeBlanc gains the Cassiopeia, maybe in favor of Fly's champion pick overall, but Gold Coin United basically stuck to what they wanted to do. They stopped GBM from being a big factor on the map. They lost a little bit of pressure on their top side by giving Solo a tank versus tank matchup, and one that we saw that Licorice was very well versed in with the Cho'Gath pickup against the Shen, but they waited for the late game. They scaled up accordingly. They prioritized the dragons very well, considering they got so many late game great scaling dragons, and they eventually came out ahead in the later game team fights.
I feel like this is going to be a great series overall, though, just because so many things went in one team's favor, but not the other teams. You can talk about all the dragons and early kills that worked out for GCU, despite it was eUnited kind of looking for some of those plays. They got those early game advantages kind of snowballed through dragons, but despite that, eUnited still did a great job finding openings in team fights, getting on the Fly 2 fights in a row that kind of kept them in this game and stalled it out for a long time. It's one of those things where you change a couple of these variables up. Maybe Licorice doesn't end up on Cho'Gath because he had a great performance. Again, you have so much adaptation available for both teams in this series. It's going to be really fun.
Yeah, and even though Gold Coin United came out ahead in that game, number 1, we had some very few questions we had for United coming into this series of the fact of how do they manage when they fall behind. We saw that, for the first couple of weeks of Challenger, they were undefeated. They actually didn't lose until they lost to Gold Coin United, and I believe it was the final week of Challenger. And even then, the final week against Big God Jackals, they struggled. They said, hey, our Koreans they're fixing their visas. We didn't have a lot of practice time, but they were able to show against, a Big God Jackals team that they could come back from behind. This time around, they go up against Gold Coin United. It's a very hard-fought game, but they come out behind.
I mean, that's one of the things that was the advantages of swapping the Korean imports over, was just when they had the European imports with Gilius and Fox, they were very, very snowball reliant. They were great at it, but if they fell behind, it kind of felt like that was just the end of it. Whereas on the flip side, with these two, you see that they kept their calm, even though GBM had a bad game. We talked about how scary he can be on things like Vladimir and LeBlanc, still finding great angles to enter the fight and pick up some kills despite being very far behind.
Gold Coin United found their own advantages and hung tight with eUnited throughout the early game, but for more on the GCU win, let's check on in with the analysts.
Thank you very much, Tom. And guys, Gold Coin United, the second place team, Sneak, comes up and takes a really big win here, and it was a lot of the gameplay that we've expected them. They got the set plays, and they were able to do what they did throughout the season.
Yeah, honestly, pretty pleased with them, and I think it seemed like they played the patch very well. They ran a high damage carry in the mid lane, high damage carry in the bot lane with the Kalista here. Both teams were essentially running triple tank here, right? And when you run triple tank, you know what's not good? Assassins in the mid lane. You know what's also not good? Getting counterpicked on your assassin in the mid lane. I actually thought the champ select was really awkward from eUnited, where you could tell with the Caston band they're setting up for a LeBlanc for GBM, but it's like, okay, but we're in a metagame where they've already shown you 2 tanks. They still have to pick a top laner because they picked Taric and a jungler. So it's like, okay, they're going to pick another tank. So not only are you going to pick a bunch of tanks and, not only going to pick a LeBlanc with a standing Cassiopeia counter, but you're going to pick a LeBlanc where you've got a bunch of tanks where the Cassie wants to be played anyway. So like they double countered themselves with the LeBlanc pick, both against enemy comp and providing an easy counterpick on the side.
Well, they did pull out the Trundle. They thought maybe we'd be able to steal some resources out of the tanks using Trundle, but that didn't quite happen there, Freeze.
It didn't quite happen, and then again, you have Fly that will always want to play late game champions, right? And then you know that there's still Cassio that's very good versus LeBlanc.
Yeah.
And you still pick the LeBlanc, and then just to get a counter, you give GCU everything they wanted. They were so comfortable on the stage. On the other hand, United, first game on stage that actually mattered, because let's be honest, when they play versus Big Gods, no one expected United to lose. So the first game, a little bit shaky. They didn't look comfortable, and GBM just getting twice solo kill, that's a big thing. You know, when a team is sort of reliant on you to snowball and do something to open up the map, because GBM, the way he plays, he has to get advantage mid lane. Usually that advantage is provided by Dandy. That gets advantage from jungle alone, counter jungling, aggressive invades. Then they gank together mid lane, and then GBM runs to side lanes where he puts pressure on the sidelines, ganks them or dives them, and opens up the map by taking the turrets. If your mid laner solo dies, That's not gonna
That's
happen.
pretty rough. That's right. And it was very difficult for GBM to get going. And we have a couple of replays here showing Fly just taking it to GBM, and he wasn't. It was all by himself, especially this first one right here.
That was a bit miscommunication by their jungler Dandy and GBM. Yeah. He was baiting sort of, he was playing aggressively. He always plays like this aggressively, but then it backfired. And here, this is just Cassio playing versus LeBlanc. You can't jump at this stage where at level 6, she can always stun you, she can always 1v1 you. At this point, when GBM gets shut down like that, United were lost for a long time. They didn't know what to do. They gave a lot of pressure up. All the dragons went to GCU, Santorin secured them. And eventually, GCU is pretty bad at closing the games. You know, like they were scared doing
solid 50-minute.
Yeah, they're usually scared of doing barons. They don't wanna risk it. So it takes a long time for them to close out the games. Where actually the Tristana from United came back, they started team fighting. But then again, if GBM had anything else, then LeBlanc, it would have been such a different story. Because LeBlanc late game versus triple tank, we talked about it. Yeah. It does absolutely nothing.
And definitely one of the issues with being behind is that once there was some team fighting that was happening, they weren't able to get the damage out. And again, another replay that we had in the mid lane after a long period of farming 28-30, GCU finds the picks that they need, get 3 kills and the Baron.
Yeah, I was surprised here that Tristana didn't have QSs at this point of the game, where they have such an easy CSs.
Right there.
Yeah, right there, Sejuani ult. You have to flash away from it into Cassio ult. That means just solid 4 seconds of CC. You have to flash away from it or QSs. The QSs there, ADCs don't like it because they're like, I'm losing damage when I build it, right? But sure. In this case, it will give you so much damage because you just instantly QSs the CC that's coming at you, and you will continue doing damage. So that was surprising for me as an ADC that he didn't opt for the QSS where he needed to do.
And talking a little bit about item build, you're talking about the QSS there. Freak, you were also talking about the fact that there just wasn't a lot of damage coming out of the AD carry role in this meta.
Right, so to be fair to, not Zeyzal, sorry, to Deftly here, he did do the most damage in the game on Tristana.
He played really well.
And he played really well. But the thing is, you're playing against triple tank. You absolutely, and you have LeBlanc in the mid lane. Yeah. You absolutely must, capital M must, do optimal damage on Tristana because you have to break through like 15,000 effective health, which does not happen without having good item build. And look, his choices made sense. We know Double Energizer is very popular. We know, that you need a QSS somewhere. Yeah. There's like 3 different healers in the opposing team, so you want a reminder. But you need to kill the tank somehow. And Lord Dominus Regards, Hurricane instead of both Zeal items, and an Essence Reaver so you can get Rapid Fire back up are all going to be DPS upgrades. When you're hitting 3 tank to the Hurricane bolts, it's all going to be more damage.
Yeah, and look at Deftly here, great positioning, but he just doesn't have enough damage to get out
this team fight is like, he played the best he could. He couldn't have played this team fight better, but then you look at this. He kills both the carries, and then he has no damage versus tank. And that's attributed to that they have a LeBlanc that's very far behind, no damage, he dies instantly. But then again, the item builds. Usually a lot of players opt to the same item builds every game because they're just comfortable with it, and they're very used to it, and they don't even think about building it. But that's very wrong mentality. As an ADC, you have 2 things you have to take care about: position and item builds. That's legit the 2 things that you can you can influence your game by these 2 items. There's nothing else that you influence the game. So if you do the position correctly that we saw there, where he just 1v9 the team fight, killed both the carries, but then had no damage to kill the tanks, there comes the second part, right? Item builds. And if he had the proper item builds, he could have opted, I think, like going to Fervor instead of Warlords this game, because if you play versus triple tank, going versus Fervor is very efficient. It gives you a lot of damage. Then again, switching a bit item builds, the way I would do is IE into Zeal item into QSS. Then I would finish with my Zeal item, and then straight away to Last Whisper. And you could do the last item Hurricane for the Fervor to stock up quickly and kill the tanks quickly. That way, it would have been the best. But then again, Deftly plays super well. The game, he was the main factor. They were in the game. They stayed in the game that long. And the 2 team fights we saw here, he just 1v9. But it wasn't enough, right?
It wasn't enough, and just one of those kills, I think, could have changed the game, because we know that GoldCoin United has trouble closing out these games, and there are opportunities in the future for him to go ahead and do that.
Yeah, and that's what it's going to come down to, is if you've got more games to play, maybe they'll leave Caitlyn up for him at some point. You know, maybe he can get back on the Tristana, and you know, you find ways to get around that, right? You know, you need to bring in a Black Cleaver user. You know, you're going to play your Gragas jungle, your Trundle in the support role. Look, maybe you bring out a Kled or a Jarvan, and the armor shreds enough to make the difference. But you know, clearly it feels like, especially the way these teams are playing, they're playing slow, they're playing team fight based. Finding ways to properly kill tanks is going to be, I think, a very important hallmark of champs-like adaptation and gameplay adaptation. And I think if we see that, I think we see a stronger team and the team that wins.
I mean, if you can beat them,
join them. I mean, stop playing. I mean, they're both playing triple tank, just one team picking an assassin. But then I think you go a step further and you find tank shredding.
You have to play a mid laner that scales very well into late game. Usually that has a lot of AoE. Victor is very strong. Orianna is very strong in these scenarios, and that will help you a lot. Because if you take assassin like LeBlanc in this meta, it puts so much pressure on you. Even before, you sort of felt with these champions that you have to kill people and you have to win the game through killing and snowballing, right? And now when you play versus free tanks, it's double the pressure. You have to kill someone, otherwise the pick is no worth and you will lose. That's how it works, and it will either be the way that they will adapt into like picking safer assassins or safer picks for GBM where he can do the things he likes, like Talia, Galio, where they just shove the mid lane and then they roam to side lanes, and that's how they open up the map. And they will not play LeBlanc again or something like Zed. Those two are very, very scary to pull off because they're too hard to play. Or they'll just play a teamfighting champion like Orianna or Victor, and it's gonna just give you zero pressure on your mid laner that has to kill enemy. You know that your ADC was outperforming the other ADC this game, right? Deftly was playing so well compared to Rikara, and then if you add on top of that a late game mid laner, you know that's the key for victory. If that doesn't work, you know, obviously, like it depends what their coaching staff wants to do, but depends. If they want to play aggressively, they'll try something new again, or they'll play something safer.
Right. So we'll get to see what's going to happen in this second game. We're headed for a break, but there's more challenger action around the corner. When we return, we'll see if eUnited can tie the series or if GCU jumps out to a 2-game lead. Don't touch that browser.
Dandy's going to be the first that makes a move in the mid lane. Flash body slam. Fly going to flash forward, though. He winds up picking up first blood. Cho'Gath starts things off. The silence and the rest are follow. The feast after's not going to kill him, but the explosive cast will. The petrifying gaze goes off immediately. He had the backup from MadLife, and Fly pretty much getting a solo kill on GBM. Feast is still available. The Vorpal spikes go off as well. Licorice with the feast. He gets a solo kill on solo.
I hold the Trist. You guys fight. Keep going. Listen to Sam. You guys do it. Burn.
Cassio is dead. Flash, Kalista no flash.
Run.
Definitely GBM trying to cause chaos on the backside, but Zeyzal's going to wind up falling first. Dandy will follow after that one. And now there's no knights for the front line of eUnited.